Hello people and welcome to the People Building Podcast. Today I'm sharing with you the story of the lovely Ryan Lindner. Now you might think the first, few minutes into this podcast, he just sounds like an average kind of cool guy. Well, just you wait, because there is quite a dramatic turn of events that takes place in Ryan's story and it is going to be well worth hanging in there for. I'm not talking about the anxiety as a child. I'm not talking about the OCD that he experienced. I'm not talking about that sense of not fitting in or being introverted. No, there is more. There is an even more dramatic plot twist than all of that stuff happening. Now, like Ryan, if you are someone who is interested in coaching, becoming a coach, making a difference and helping to set up other people on the correct path, if you didn't know already, here at People Building, we actually have an entire business model for you to follow because People Building is now a franchise. And that means that as well as undertaking your NLP training with me, I will work with you on an ongoing basis for a minimum of 5 years, helping you to set up, cultivate your business, attract clients, the products that you might want underpinning and supporting that, whether that is in the therapeutic or the corporate world. If it sounds like something of interest to you, then make sure you head on over to the People Building website, click on our franchise page, and you'll get the lowdown about what it is to actually be a coach out there working in the real world, just like someone like Ryan. So what else do I need to tell you about him? Yes, disaster struck. It gets dramatic. There is a really interesting conversation that we have around the introvert versus extrovert. And I always think there's this perception that if you're an introverted person, that you can't push yourself to do entrepreneurial things. And that is quite simply not true. So you're going to find out about how Ryan learned to manage his introversion so that he could go on to become a successful coach in the world. There's a quite funny part that I had a chuckle at when I listened back to the podcast. So Ryan's going to tell you about, as I say, this very dramatic situation that happened to him. And just listen out for the part where I say something to the effect of, were you feeling a little under the weather after that happened? You'll know when you hear it that as soon as I said those words, I realised that I sounded like an idiot because, of course, going through what he went through, and I'm not going to tell you, no spoilers here today, there's definitely a chance he was under the weather. He was definitely feeling under the weather after it all happened. Okay, what else do I want to tell you about? There is a special guest appearance at 1 hour and 20 minutes in. That's something you're only going to be able to enjoy if you are viewing on the YouTube channel. So you won't get a sense of what that's all about if you are listening to the audio version of the podcast. So if you want to see the visuals, YouTube is the place to do that. Make sure whilst you're there, you like the video, you subscribe to the channel and you click the notifications bell so that you get notified the next time I upload a video. If you are interested in giving us a rating and a review, iTunes is really the best place to do it. It really helps out the show, and it just ensures that other people can find it much more easily in the future, and I really appreciate any of your feedback and comments that you give there. In terms of a really sweet set of words of wisdom that come from Ryan, I want you to sort of tune in and listen out for these. So he says that in terms of what happened to him, the thing that it has left him with is how a significant event can change the decisions that you make every day. And the reason why I think that that's such an important statement is because it's very easy to think about difficult events in our lives, significant emotional events in our lives, as being flat out negative, like they have nothing else to offer us. But in Ryan's case, his story is definitely a story of how he has used a tricky situation and worked it to his advantage so that the decisions he makes every day now are really worthwhile ones and only worthwhile ones. So you're going to like this one. There's a lot of wisdom in this podcast and it's just out and out a really good conversation. So let me hand back now to Gemma from the past and the wonderful Ryan Lindner. Hello, people, and welcome to the People Building Podcast. And today I am delighted to be joined by Ryan, who's actually a bit of a veteran when it comes to doing podcasting, because he does rather a lot of these and talking to people. So I'm going to let him introduce himself because he can probably do this better than I can. Ryan, tell us who you are.
Yeah, so happy to be here. Thanks for having me. Yeah, I've been a coach for many years. Something I never planned on doing, never knew it was a career option. But coaching, I was really drawn to it, just having conversations with people, listening, helping them make behavior changes. And so coach for many years, kind of fell into it. From there, I also fell into working with organizations. I was invited to coach in organizations, and it led to me creating content and training programs. So I'd be hired by a lot of big companies. I would do things like track employee turnover and determine, is there a cultural component to this? Are people leaving because we all heard the saying, people leave bad bosses,
Yeah.
not bad jobs. So I try to basically help people be their best. I look at their blind spots. I help with transitions a lot. So when people are having a lot of anxiety, I work a lot with introverts, and really helping people have that mindset shift, and just be their best.
Yeah.
And I do just right now just a ton of trainings and content development around that.
Okay. So you mentioned that coaching was something you kind of stumbled into. So what were you doing before?
So everything. And I actually mean that. I was kind of lost, I'd say, a lost puppy. And I I grew up with just, I mean, I'm an introvert, and my so I can relate to introverts. My clients would probably be a little surprised by that, because I'm not shy. I'm not shy at all. I just kind of recharge my batteries a little differently. I like to kind of and then I grew up with just terrible anxiety, horrible anxiety. And I was sort of drawn to the finding personal development that might work for me.
Mm-hmm.
And I never knew what I wanted to do. I started my career in wellness, so um, I didn't know where that would lead. I found in some wellness, when you're entering it, especially years ago, um, where I was, there weren't many opportunities, didn't pay much, and I had just a ton of jobs for the lower part of my 20s, really. And a lot of people have done this, but I had 37 jobs, actually.
Wow, that's a lot.
Yeah, yes, it is. And it was, he had to make ends meet. I was a student. I was going to school a lot of times at night. I was a dad,
Mm-hmm.
and it was just really hard to juggle all that and also have full time. So I was in an area where there was really nothing, nothing. So I did quite a lot of jobs, and just trying to kind of figure out where I fit. It never felt like I fit. Never felt like I fit into like a corporate atmosphere where, I just never felt like I fit there. And so I got into wellness thinking, well, I enjoy helping people. I enjoy fitness, nutrition, training, helping people, motivation, things like that. And I was drawn to it because I needed that too. And
Yeah.
I think when you talk to people, and you help them see their blind spots a little bit, kind of see the habits they can't see. And so I had a contract, and I worked for a company, and I did coaching for the first time. I've done other types of coaching too, but this was health and wellness coaching. And then from there, I worked with more transitions, career, things like
Mm-hmm.
that. Yeah, I was there for about a year, and I had not a year, a month, and I
Okay.
had a cardiac arrest. So that was a
What? Right, hang on a minute. So how old were you at this point in
was
time?
30.
You were 30 years old and you had a cardiac arrest.
I had two of them. They were a day apart.
You didn't just go for one. Why do one when you can have two? All
I
right.
know, right?
So hang on. I feel like I have so many questions already. Okay. firstly, I feel like we needed like a little crescendo of music coming up to that moment or
Like
something.
background music
Dun, dun,
here,
dun.
dramatic music.
Okay, so you mentioned that when you were younger, you had challenges with anxiety. Was there anything specific? And I ask this because I do a lot of work with children and young people as well. Was there anything specific about your childhood that caused you to have that anxiety? Or was it just you? Would you look at it now and say it was maybe just a bit of a natural predisposition towards it?
I would say there are two things. I mean, first of all, I had fantastic parents. I had no abuse or anything like that. Um, it, I think part of it was natural. I would say, I mean, at that time, they're even more so than now, um, the understanding of anxiety and treatments and things is much greater now than
Sure.
it was.
Yeah.
And I think at the time, people just thought I was interesting or quirky or,
Yeah.
different. And now I think there'd be more treatments. But
Yeah.
I had OCD
Wow. Okay.
real bad, and
How did
just
that
that
manifest
anxiety.
itself? What sort of behaviors were you doing?
I had a lot of rituals I would do. I was what you'd call a neat freak. That's what people thought it was, but it was really just me trying to get control of my
Yeah.
environment. And it was so bad, I basically got rid of all my possessions. I had this like no more than one item on a shelf, and it was like
Okay.
one item. And there were a ton of other things. I was real weird about plugs, and just I saw an episode of TV where you know the sparks of the plugs, and then there was a fire, and then of
Yeah.
course I'd worry about that. I couldn't step on cracks. I mean, just and I could talk for an hour just about
Okay.
the ritual. So yeah, it was pretty bad for a while, and I think it was all made worse by um being what seemed like I was real shy. I was just a real quiet
Mm.
guy, um, nervous, the anxiety. And I think socially, kids can be real rough, they
Yeah.
can. And I was fine, I think, more one-on-one with people, but in groups, it was just a nightmare.
Yeah.
So I think combination natural and then also, experiences I had along the way
Mhm.
socially that made me withdraw even more. And
Okay.
yeah.
Is that where the introvertedness came from? Because I'm very conscious that probably more like you are now. I think I'm an introvert. Um, And I once posted on my Facebook wall to see what other people thought that I was, because lots of people know me from speaking and events and my coaching stuff that I do and training and these sorts of things. And so I was always curious about whether that introvertedness that I have is apparent to other people or not, or if it's just something that I feel and that I believe about myself. And it was a really mixed bag. So I would say the people that probably know me more personally um, said introvert. The people that knew me perhaps a bit more from work would say extrovert. And then the ones that were, somewhere kind of they had a foot in both worlds, was saying omnivert, which I didn't even know was a thing. So do you think that there's a correlation for you at least between the anxiety and now sort of defining yourself as an introvert?
I think there was a correlation, but not anymore. And what I mean by that is I think growing up, I always viewed being an introvert as something I needed to fix, something that was
Mm.
bad. And I think that drove the anxiety. Like, I've
Right.
worked with a
More
lot of
pressure.
introverts. Yeah, yeah. Like, oh God, I'm afraid of public speaking. I shouldn't be like this. Don't be like this. And the mental dialogue that goes along with, I
Yeah.
should not be like this at all. And I need to fix it and all that. And I think once you own it, and once you even like it about yourself, which I do, um, I think a lot of the anxiety sort of dissolves a little bit. But um, I would say similarly to you, I think the more personally you know me, it seems like, an introvert, definitely. And
Yeah.
then professionally, especially one-on-one coaching, I don't think they'd guess it at all, because it
Right.
just means, we're uh, chatting, and I'm super positive and upbeat, and I
Yeah.
don't think they'd guess that at all.
Yeah. Okay. So next, um, so you went into the world of work. Was it going out into work that pushed you a little bit more outside of your comfort zone and got you acting more extroverted, even though at your core you remained quite introverted? Is that what also kind of got you past the anxiety and the OCD rituals?
I think it was the first step forward with that, because I learned to be what I call scrappy, and I had to make ends meet, and it was, I did every kind of job you can think of. I mean, a lot of waiting tables, a lot of I went door to door sales. I sold, oh gosh, all kinds of things. Delivered pizza, uh, made trinkets, painted fences. I mean,
Right.
every random thing. But I realized that, or I developed a strength about myself that was, okay, I can figure things out. I can figure
Yeah.
things out. Um, I'm not the smartest guy out there. I'm not um, the best at any one area, but I think what I am good at is um just figuring things out and rolling with it, and
Yeah.
that critical thinking piece.
Yes. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and
Problem
I
solving.
learned that. I learned that for sure.
Yeah. Okay. So where we've got to is you've been growing up. There was some anxiety, there was some OCD behaviors happening. And then life kind of tipped you towards getting a bit more scrappy, bit more of a problem solving attitude, just so that you can kind of make ends meet and make your way in life. And it's giving you experience to a whole world of different things
Oh yeah.
through your work career. And really sort of pushing you to get past some of those mental health type limitations that might have been there from the early days. And then you get into this job where you're coaching and you're thinking to yourself, I think this could be the thing. I've turned a corner. Things are on the up. It's all going to be okay. And then
Oh yeah. Yeah.
where were you and what happened when you became unwell?
Um, it was a random freak event. I felt, I had a good day, worked out that day. Yeah, I had my dream job there. Um,
And when you say you're working out, so you were physically, as far as you knew, you were fit and healthy.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, for many years, I was even I was a vegetarian for a long time. Plenty of sleep, always
Yeah.
hydrated, and so forth. But I worked out, I would say 2, 3 hours earlier. Felt great, did great, just a normal day.
And you said the
Um,
coaching job you were coaching other people around like wellness and stuff as well.
exactly,
So you're
exactly.
you're even somewhat educated in that area, in that subject area. So there's no reason for me to think that you were sat there in Five Guys, cigarette in one hand, massive burger in the other
Absolutely. Yeah. I was even a
hand.
personal trainer for a long time. So,
Wow.
um, fitness, nutrition, yeah, non-smoker, and no family
Yeah.
history.
Okay.
So absolutely random. And so I didn't know what was going on. And that evening, I felt a little, um, I had a couple just irregular heartbeat, and I just said, "Oh, that's odd." I didn't feel bad. I just,
Yeah.
just noticed it.
Well, was it like it kind of like sped up or fluttered? What did you
I would
notice?
call it more of just, it didn't speed up per se. I would say it was just more of an irregular beat. So it more,
Okay.
yeah, just not a consistently normal beat.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
the timing would be off, and yeah, I felt fine though. Um, and for the first cardiac arrest, so they were a day apart. Um, I, you know, and as a guy too, I think there's something, oh, I'm good, just, you duct tape stuff and you move on, and I just thought, you know, I don't need to worry about it.
Uh-huh.
But at the time, my girlfriend said, well, I really think you should go and get checked out. I mean, I was like, no, no, I'm good. Thanks. Eventually I was like, yeah, maybe I should. Maybe I should. And I drove to the ER, and right as I
This
got there,
was
I
on the
dropped right
same
there.
day, the same day
Same
as
day.
the first one. Yeah, okay.
Same day. And I turned to the woman next to me, and I just said, I'm going down now. So I knew a few seconds prior that I didn't know I was going to have a cardiac arrest, but I knew I was going to lose consciousness because my vision started to change, and it was like a
Okay. Yeah.
tunnel and it started to close in.
Uh-huh.
When I woke up, um, it was like a movie. I was in the ER, and people were yelling around me, and there was people running around, and doctors and nurses yelling and wondering and frantically putting tubes in me and things
Mhm.
like that. So yeah, terrifying, just absolutely utterly terrifying. The second day it happened, I was already in the ICU. So if you have to have a cardiac arrest, being in the ICU is the best place. So, yeah, and they brought out the
Wow.
paddles, and
Yeah.
shocked me back and all that.
Right. So first time around, did you, if they're bringing out the paddles, had your heart stopped?
It did. Yeah, it was completely stopped. Yep. Both times.
Gee
Yep.
whiz. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it did it same thing the second day as well? It stopped
Same thing.
again?
Same thing. Yeah. And when I woke up, when I came to, people were aligned around my bed, and a nurse was stroking my forehead, just, hey, you're okay. You're okay. You're all right.
Right.
It was like they were all like, whew, like, that was a
Yeah.
close one. Yeah.
Gosh.
Yeah.
At what point did you find out what had happened?
Never. Or I knew I had the cardiac arrest, but I never knew what caused it, and I still don't. Um,
Wow.
the closest years and years, yeah, I'm in my 40s now. The years and years I've searched. I've seen world renowned specialists. I was even on a year-long waiting list for a world renowned dizziness doctor. And the closest I can find out is that I had electrical problems, or I have electrical problems.
Okay.
So I have a pacemaker now, just as a safety net
Backup. Yeah.
to keep it going.
Yeah.
But yeah, the actual cause is still unknown.
Mhm.
They talk to me about symptoms, and they tell, I found out, the cardiac arrest, I knew, right after the fact, but I didn't know what to do with that information. I didn't know what to do, because it was just so, um, such a surprise. And I, there's no way, I could have predicted it. And, I was brand new at this job. My benefits, my insurance hasn't kicked in yet.
Ugh.
Um, and I was back at work 5 days later because
Oh,
I had a
yeah.
financial need. I didn't have paid time off or anything. I was brand new.
Mm.
So I was back at work 5 days later, connected to all these wires, and just sitting there, with wires and heart monitor and all that connected to me.
Yeah.
Now it started sessions again 5 days later. Um,
Wowzers. Were you I'm wondering if you would be sort of physically uncomfortable. 'Cause, I mean, getting shocked by those paddles, that's gonna give you some bruising or something, right? You must have at the very least felt a little under the weather.
Absolutely. I felt, um, I think all that paled in comparison, though, to, oh, I left out a minor detail, is that, um, I was always super dizzy, always right on the edge of consciousness, always.
Okay.
And I'm dizzy now. I mean, I'm dizzy 24/7, and
Right.
I was always right on the edge of consciousness. So, I would be at work, and just barely hanging on, barely hanging on. And
And would you faint? Were you someone who fainted regularly?
never fainted in my life prior to that.
That's so bizarre.
It is, isn't it? And
Wow.
I've been wheeled out on gurneys before. Paramedics
Yeah.
have come to get me. I've been at the gym and almost keeled over there. So there's something about being in the constant fear of death. Not to be morbid here, but um,
Yeah.
when you view things in a positive way, you view them very, very clearly in terms of how you spend your energy.
Hmm.
So there was a positive that came from it, and that's that, of all the work I've done with clients, helping them establish boundaries in their life and
Yeah. Yeah.
manage their time and things like that. I have to. I have to
Hmm.
have boundaries, because if I don't, I get sick. If I don't get enough sleep, I get sick. If I don't prioritize self-care, if I don't drink enough, if I don't eat well, I start getting dizzy. I start having heart palpitations. My blood pressure starts being weird. Um,
Okay.
yeah, so I
So
I
there's
have to do that.
clearly something there, then, isn't there? There's something a bit weird about you. Something's not
There's lots of
right.
things that are weird about me, but um, I think I think it's that electrical problems. I don't think there's anything with the heart per se. I think it's the
Okay.
brain. I think it's
Right.
the electrical signals and how it regulates the body. So now I manage symptoms, and I know there's certain things that trigger me and make me feel worse. And then of
Okay.
course I've got the Cadillac of pacemakers to keep
Hmm.
me keep me going. So
Did you see the dizzy doctor? I'm super interested.
I did,
There's
I
some
did, and they
amazing
did every
subtitles.
test you can possibly imagine.
Yeah.
I mean, they tested my inner ear. I mean, blood work. I mean, every kind of, and nothing conclusive about anything. Nothing.
Wow. That's very peculiar. Yeah. All right. So you went back to work 5 days after having two cardiac arrests whilst being a seemingly fit and healthy young man. Um, I mean, your boss must have been terrified for a start. I would have
Oh
been.
yeah. Oh yeah. They were all like, "What?" And they they didn't know
Yeah.
what to make of it. But
And so from there, I know someone who very, very recently had a series of small cardiac arrests, which turned out to be a tubing problem. So he's actually got faulty valve, which has now been replaced. But one of the things that I noticed as a result of him going through that experience, so for him, he ended up having a surgery to remove and replace a valve. Um, it seemed to really change his perspective on life in quite a lot of important ways, and there was probably some work there for him to do in respect of reevaluating health and where he was spending his time and energy and that kind of stuff, which I can see. But you were already doing a lot of stuff in the right way, so I guess I'm curious about the maybe not the sort of physical change of lifestyle that it might have created for you, but maybe more the psychological change. You mentioned there about being a lot more concerned about where your time and energy was going, which I can absolutely appreciate. Were there other things that it changed or influenced in your psychology or your perception of the world as a result of going through that experience?
yeah, that's a great question. And I like the part about the perception of the world, because no one's asked me that, and I think that's a great question. Absolutely. I mean, it shifted so many things, but not what people think. People think, "Oh, wow, you went through that. Like, you only live once. Life is short." All those sayings, and I was already kind of thinking those things anyway, because back in the earlier days, I mean, I went through such struggle. I mean, my shoes were basically duct tape with a sole and a top of a shoe, and basically duct tape together. I mean, that was how bad it was. I had Not I was eating tuna packets and stale breadsticks. I mean, it was a terrible time. So I already kind of thought, wow, we're, that sort of awareness of your place in the world, and um, what is your purpose? What is life meant to be? I've already had those already internal conversations.
Sure.
But what happened, I think, was I I am a little bit more cynical. Um, and now people, oh God, cynical. So he's not a positive. That's not true at all. I'm very positive. I think, and motivated, and all those sorts of things. But I think the cynicism is about the authenticity in the world. And
Okay.
when you meet someone, the first thing they give you is their resume. Oh, so what
Mhm.
do you do? I'm this, I'm this, I'm this, I'm this. But who you are is really just circumstances. I mean, I'm the same guy I was when I was waiting tables, delivering pizza, all those things. You people grow and everything, but they think that they are their role. They
Yeah.
think that they're their role. And that's not true. And I feel that to my being, I feel that way, especially after the cardiac arrest, because and it also really transformed my view of worrying and anxiety. Um, in that, and there is a method I use to kind of control it, but I clearly see most things are just not worth the energy.
Mhm.
Um, they're just not. Most worrying isn't. And I really do appreciate authentic, real people and conversations. Like, even daily interactions. People see you, oh, how are you? Good, how are you? It's not a real answer, and it's not a real question. How are you? Not too bad. They say not too bad all the time here. Like,
Yeah.
oh, you're bad, just not too bad. That's good, that's good. How are you? Hanging in there? How are you? And it's not a real interaction, and people can feel real interactions. They can feel it.
Yeah.
um, and it's like that saying, people don't always remember what you say, but they always remember how you make them feel. And that is so true. So I appreciate authenticity. um, and I think the cynicism is just feeling like I'm surrounded by um, fluff or
Yeah.
inauthentic, that it does weigh on you after a while.
Is that because you are in the coaching world? Because I would, from my own experience, suggest that there's almost an expectation that if you're coaching in some way, that you should always be looking on the sunnier side. And so I appreciate a lot of what you're saying because it pisses me right off when uh when it's almost like you don't have permission to be in a bad mood or upset by something because someone's going to try and reframe it and make it positive. And actually, I'm not there yet. So I don't want to feel good about it yet. Like I'm still working through this thing, which is also completely okay. Um, so I feel like within the world of coaching, there is a sort of leaning towards positivity, even if it's a false positivity.
Oh, 1,000%. And I think there's an expectation in the helping professions that, okay, I am here to perform and to make you motivated. Well,
Yeah.
I can be motivating, but it's not
Yeah.
my job to motivate you.
Yeah.
I think there's a distinction there. It's not my job to motivate someone. Now I can be motivating, but there's the expectation that I think the provider does it for you. and,
Yeah.
and rather than, I view it more as I think it's a disservice to people too if I'm not realistic with my humanness and
Mm.
theirs. And if you believe it, you can be it, and just be like so sunshine and rainbows all the time. And I think my ability to really relate with people, it's critical that I can be real. And
Yeah.
I think they feel it. I think they're not used to it. I really don't
Yeah.
think they are.
Yeah. I view it as so the way that I've sort of reconciled it with myself is that it's about being honest. It's about being truthful in that moment. Um, which sometimes stings a little bit, uh, but it's still truthful. So there is a lot of the coaching that I do is based around neuro linguistic programming. And there is a presupposition that we have in NLP of there is no failure, only feedback. And one of the tasks that I do when I'm teaching NLP is I give them the presuppositions and say, which ones do you think are accurate? Which ones do you agree with, disagree with, blah, blah, blah. And because they're all sort of like fresh and new on a coaching course. And so they're like, all super happy and skippy. And they'll get to this one where it's like, there's no failure, only feedback. And they're like, that's true. And I'm like, no, it's not, though, is it? You can fail. Like some things you will just fail at. You'll still get some feedback. The feedback is you failed. And they're like, yeah, but that's going to set me up better for next time. And I'm like, there isn't always a next time. Sometimes you just
Absolutely.
fail. That's it. You
Yeah,
know?
absolutely. And I feel like what drives me crazy about the helping professions and coaching is, yeah, that whole mentality, and you described it perfectly. It's, yeah, you never fail, and you can do anything you set your mind to. I don't like that either. If I wanted to be in the NFL, in the football league, I don't think they would hire me right now. I don't think I think I've missed that opportunity, no matter how much I set my mind to it. But
Yeah.
I feel like the difference is failing doesn't necessarily make me a failure in terms of a person.
100%. Yeah.
So I can fail, and I failed countless times.
Yeah.
Um, the question
I
is,
fail very well.
oh
I'm
yeah,
very good
you
at
fail
it.
with I fail with style, and I mean it. I mean it when I fail.
Yeah.
Um, and that's the difference, is can you embrace the failure? Because we have this thing in a lot of coaches I've met, it's almost like, oh, that's a bad word, don't say it, you're never a failure. No, you are actually. But
Yeah.
not as a person though. It's not your identity. And I think people, that when they run into trouble is they take rejection,
Mm.
failure, and all that, and think that it is somehow tied to their self-worth,
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
their value. And like, I can fail 50 times, but I've got some level of detachment from it, to
Mm.
where when we also make assumptions, like let's say someone, I do a lot with career transitions too, and someone didn't get a job, right? And they go, oh, I failed, I'm a failure, they didn't like me, I'm terrible. Yeah, but you don't the first question I always ask myself in my internal dialogue is, what do I actually know about a situation? If I didn't get a job, maybe they hired someone internally. Maybe they had 845 candidates and I was number 2. I still didn't get the job, but most people wouldn't feel like a failure if they were number 2 out of 845.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, maybe they really did like you, and again, they hired internally, or maybe you applied for a job and it was the last day that the job was posted and they already had someone in mind. You
Yeah.
just don't know.
No.
And most people just jump to conclusions and make assumptions and things like that. So for me, I always detach from it, because I realize I don't know a lot about situations.
Mm.
And even if I did fail at something or get rejected, um, you know, you win some, you lose some,
Yeah. Yeah.
and for whatever reason, um, you make it okay, and you move on. You move
Yeah.
on.
I think what's really powerful in that skill that you have to be able to detach yourself from the situation, to detach yourself from the failure so that you're not the failure. I think it is something, um, it's obviously very useful for your ego and your identity, but I feel like a lot of people would rather sort of wallow in that, like the poor me, and they would rather feel that as a slight, as a rejection, so that it's almost like their ego is like, yes, it's all about me. I think it's takes a real evolution of someone's spirit to be able to say, actually, it's not all about me. There's a whole load of stuff going on that I don't know about. So I can let it go.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I kind of treat everything as an experiment, I think what a lot of people do is, when they get rejected and they make it about them, I think there's a strange satisfaction there in that it's a self-fulfilling prophecy too. They have confirmed, oh, I failed, and see, I knew that would happen. Oh, gee. And they have this dialogue that they go on, and a lot of times it warps their view, and then next time they get rejected, it confirmed their
Mm.
view, and it ends up in this cycle where, oh God, I knew that would happen. See, I'm a loser now, and it goes down this. For me, if I do fail at something, and I still do, and I just say, oh, okay, well, what can is there anything that I learned that I could take from that was useful that I can just
Yeah.
use again in the future, and um most of the time there's something I can take from it. But even then, that kind of goes back to my, when I said I was a little cynical, is, I don't feel like any of us are our roles anyway. And I'm not even success. I'm not even success. I'm no more successful than I am a failure. I'm just a person, and how the decisions I make every day are just an extension of that. But I always tell people, like, when I'm in the ICU laying there and I'm saying my goodbyes, which is what I was doing, uh, I didn't have a career in that moment. I wasn't a coach in that moment. If you're on a deserted island, are you a lawyer? Are you an accountant? Are you? No, you're nothing. You're just a person. You're a person. Um, if you lose this job, you'll get another job. You
Mm.
know, you're just a person. That's what you are. You're a person. Um, and I always try to remember that, if I'm successful or not. I don't even know what that means. Does that mean I have more? Is it money? Is it possessions? Is it? I don't know what that means. But um, I just think that people are too attached to that label of,
Yeah.
I'm this, I'm this, I'm this.
So I was curious, but you may have already answered it, about what it was about your experience of being unwell in hospital that made you become cynical. Is it that you had the opportunity in that moment? Maybe opportunity is not the right word, but you were in a set of circumstances in that moment where being so close to your life not moving forward really made you reevaluate, well, what is my life? What is my life worth? And that's what helped you to detach from those labels around, I'm not my career, I'm not success, and those sorts of things. Or was it something else? What was it that made you, why did you get cynical?
I think it made, and this is the best way I can sum it up, is it made me question what is actually true and real in my life. And what I mean by that is everything. Religion, politics, like, and not to get religious here, I think there's something very healthy about asking questions. That's it.
Mhm.
And just saying, all right, well, what's real? Why is it real? What do I know? Because everything for me is a decision about where I'm putting my energy. Because again, you're under constant fear of death. It just changes your way of. So, like religion, for example,
Had you grown
you know,
up religious?
no, but my grandmother was devout Catholic, devout.
Okay.
Um,
Okay.
I was baptized and all that. But most people in religion are born into it, or it's tradition, or they're told what to believe at a very young age. And most people believe that they are in the sole possession of the truth.
Mhm.
Now, I could talk for 4 hours. I won't talk for 4 hours about that, but I do feel like there's, you know, when every religion, there's what, 3,000 religions on the planet, and everyone thinks that they have the way, and they figured out they don't know how their own bodies work or how their TVs work, but they know how existence works.
Yeah.
Um, and same with politics. In the US, it's Democrat or Republican. So you have a view that's conservative or Republican or whatever,
Mhm.
and somehow you inherit all the other views of that party. So
Mhm.
you can't believe one side, a little bit of one side, a little bit of the other. A little, you can't do that. It's so to me, most people, what's true, if I'm questioning things, is a lot of things. The cynicism is really when I go through the questions and it doesn't pass the test. Um, like, and everyone thinks that they are like, tell me about yourself. Well, I'm a Democrat, I'm Republican,
Mhm.
I'm an accountant, I'm this, I'm that. No, 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 no. That's just your resume and about you and things like that. So I think a lot of that is just it's identity. That's all it is. It's belonging. It's how you were raised.
Yeah.
It's things like that that isn't necessarily you.
So if you were coaching you, so it's your lucky day, you've met a wonderful coach. And he is exactly like you. And you meet him for the first time, and he says to you, so Ryan, tell me about yourself. What do you say? If you're not defining yourself by your job or your religion or your politics, so who are you?
Well, I answer that in two ways. Number one, I don't get on a soapbox when I'm meeting someone new, and I understand what they mean. And I have learned most people just want an easy, pleasant interaction. They're not trying to get philosophical with me, and they don't want me talking for an hour about how they asked me the wrong, or the wrong question, or do you really mean that when you ask me? Do you really want to know who I am? I usually just I am people notice two things about you in an impression. Number one is competence, usually, and number two is really warmth. So when I meet
Yes.
someone, I'm just trying to be warm and have a good interaction, and I accept them for however they're showing up. And that's
Yeah.
been a practice I've tried to work on as well, is however they show up, that's
Mhm.
good. That's fine.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, so I don't expect them to be any other way, but so to answer your question, I usually just in the way of having a pleasant interaction, I give them that. Now, the
Yeah.
other side of it is I do try to give them a real answer, without, if they ask me how I am, I'm not like, oh, good, it's automatic. I try to give them something real.
Mhm.
If they ask me for me to tell them, about myself, um, my goal is just to connect. So I don't give them a laundry list of, oh, I'm this and this and this and this and this. It's
Yeah.
usually just finding something in common that can spur more conversation.
Yeah.
um that's really it's a little bit of a dynamic shift there, where you don't give your necessarily profession and you list oh, I do this and I went there.
Yeah.
um it's more just, I want to connect as people, and
Mhm.
not so much the titles or the roles, and
Yeah.
just, and it could be commenting on something that's happening. It could be,
Mhm.
we're listening to music and, oh, have you
Unique
heard them? They're
experience.
amazing. That's beautiful. Like an experience. So there's a
Yes.
lot more of the in the moment, what we are experiencing talk, than there is more of the resume for either
Yeah.
side.
Yeah. 100%.
Yeah.
It's funny listening to you talking about how